This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Baltic Truth, collaboration with Nazis in the Baltic states. A new film dares to reveal the little-known and horrifying truth about Baltic complicity in the Holocaust. With us this evening, Eugene Levin, the producer of the new film, Baltic Truth. Eugene, what an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. It's a privilege to be on your show. Thank you.
And thank you. Look, what a documentary you're making, and a film documentary, and what a horrifying issue, a dark issue. And we know that there's still a lot of denial, and that this issue is being buried. Why don't we just begin with you introducing Baltic Truth to us?
Well, Baltic Truth is it's a deeply personal story. It actually started with my grandfather, who was trying to simply get his properties back in Latvia, the properties that he owned his family owned before 1940. And he was footballed by the government officials. He never received anything back, was not compensated. And on one of the trips that I made to Latvia, to the mass grave of the Jews that were killed in Akniste, it actually was back in 2012, I noticed a new monument, which was about 15 to 20 feet away from the mass grave of the Jews. There was a granite stone with the gold letters basically saying, you gave your life in fight with communist oppression of Latvia. And then I started looking at the names on the plaques, and one of the names was Vilis Tunkelis, and I couldn't believe my eyes that I was seeing this, simply because this man was in charge of the execution of the Jews of that little town. And we started investigating more, and basically I found out that it's happening all over Latvia and Lithuania. Glorification of individuals who fought on the side of the German army against the Russian army, simply because they saw Germans as, chance of freedom from the Russian occupation. But everybody closed their eyes on the fact that some of these people were involved in crimes against the Jews before they joined the Waffen-SS.
So Eugene, there's this overall belief that the Holocaust, the killing of Jews, and then there's these German Nazis. But your film is showing, and history is telling us, the history that's buried, is that it's not just Nazi Germans or German soldiers, or German guards at concentration camps. These were Latvians. These were the locals. These were the neighbors of Jewish people that were living in Latvia. Correct?
Exactly. Collaboration with the German army, especially in the Baltics, was enormous. Of course, there were Latvians who saved Jews. I can't say that everybody was bad, but as my grandfather said, that 10% killed, 90% robbed.
Just a second. What do you mean by that? 10%. Say that again.
In his town, he said 10% of the people who were involved were actually shooting and killing. Everybody else had a chance to rob. They robbed. They took the properties. They took whatever they could get their hands on. Most of the guards, for example, in the Riga ghetto were the Latvians. The people who escorted the Jews to their execution in Rumbula and the other locations were the Latvians. The Germans supervised, and the Latvians basically did what they were told to do.
So, Eugene, now let's just backtrack for a minute historically here, and also as you're saying, of course, not all. And sometimes when I tire of hearing some of these excuses or arguments from the deniers, because we know that there's a Polish issue as well, as you well know. And there's always, oh, well, it wasn't all of them, and there were some heroic people that tried to support the Jews. We know that. We know that there's good people everywhere and there's heroic people everywhere. But that does not erase that there was a mass complicity by, in this case, let's say the Latvians. So, and we have to register that and try to understand why. Now the historical context, and this is not to excuse or exonerate in any way. Let's just try to understand this picture. The Latvians in some way overall absolutely victimized by these two devils at the time, Hitler and Stalin. We get it. We've got the Gulag, we've got the Stalinist purges, we've got the Stalinist oppression of the Baltics, we got that. And so they're squeezed by Hitler and by Stalin, and we know all the arguments that could be put about how difficult it was to be between these two evil empires, etc. But my question is, how do the logical dots connect in the brain to start killing Jewish people? One was that we understand that they somehow saw Jews as being synonymous with communism. And then, of course, anti-Semitism comes in. What would you say to this?
An ordinary person can't really explain what happened in their heads. They had a chance to kill, they had a chance to rob, and they did it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the same question, why were 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust? Mm-hmm. Do you have an answer for that? Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone would have a logical answer. I mean, of course there's anti-Semitism, of course there is, it's been in existence for centuries, right?
But some kind of tremendous evil here in terms of also complicity, because also in your trailer for the movie, which we'll show in a minute, that
the propaganda was that the Jews are communists, Jews are Bolsheviks, and therefore kill the Bolsheviks, kill the communists, and don't forget about the Jews. And they basically started, the Holocaust in Latvia for the Jews in Latvia started on July 4th, 1941, which is the day when 400 Jews were simply burned in a Riga Great Synagogue, along with some Jews who were hiding there from Šiauliai, Lithuania. And simply after this action, the whole, horror started.
Right. But as we know, the Jew hatred and the anti-Semitism obviously predates communism. And there's another whole realm there. And so your movie is going to bring to the surface that these were next door neighbors, these were teachers, these were shopkeepers, these were farmers.
Ironically, to say that, oh, Jews are Bolsheviks, Jews are communists, let's kill them. My grandfather's family were not communists, they were not Bolsheviks. They actually suffered from the occupation, from the Russian occupation, just like any Latvians. They lost all of their properties in 1940. And so for the neighbors who participated and for the people who are from the same town who participated in the execution, it's pretty, I don't know, it's not an excuse.
Right.
It's an overall propaganda that's been going on, I guess, in the 40s and the 30s.
Right, and Eugene, and there were actually even some kind of official announcements that when you start killing the Jews, just don't do it in public. Take them out into the forest or something like that, right?
Somebody we interviewed, there was actually a person by the name of Eli Gotts. He survived Kaunas ghetto at the age of 12, and he ended up with his father and his mother in Dachau, and also survived. So he was telling us that when, I would say, pogroms, in Kaunas started, before the ghetto was organized, they were simply killing Jews on the streets. You would be walking down the street and they would just shoot you, or they would beat you to death with some clubs. And there was one of the big actions that happened in the communist garages, where kind of like right in the beginning, I think it was about three or 400 Jews were just killed with hoses and clubs. And after that happened, the Lithuanian government simply said, "Oh, if you kill the Jews, don't kill them openly. Put them, bring them somewhere in the backyards." And this is actually what happened afterwards, because all of the mass graves that we visited in Latvia and Lithuania, they're all in a forest. They're all somewhere outside of the town. They made people walk, 15 to 20 miles to their death.
And Eugene, we're not talking about dozens or hundreds. We're talking about tens of thousands and into the hundreds of thousands of Jewish people.
And you also have to keep in mind that all of that was happening in the beginning of the war, before concentration camps, before gas chambers. As an example, there's a place in Riga called Rumbula. It's a forest. People were marched from Riga Ghetto to that forest on 2 dates. And in 2 days, they executed almost 30,000 people with machine guns.
Just horrifying evil. Let's show the trailer of Baltic Truth.
Meine Arbeit für richtig hältst. Ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet.
The Lithuanian government made a promulgation, an announcement. Don't shoot Jews openly. Please take them into a backyard somewhere, but don't shoot them openly.
July 18, 1941, 175 people were killed here, along with 19 members of my family. Women were undressed, robbed of their jewelry. Men had their noses and ears cut.
А командир, да, был учитель школы, мой самый любимый учитель.
This monument was erected by the surviving family members of the Akneste Jewish community. And only 50 feet away, under those little white crosses, the executioners of Akneste Jews are buried as heroes of Latvia.
The propaganda was Jews are communists or Jews are Bolsheviks, and consequently you have a right to kill them.
Everybody who was anti-Soviet was a hero, and nobody had time or energy to look for what he did in 41.
Борис был, бесспорно, был военным преступником.
Vilis Tuntelis. He was also responsible for the execution of family members of Eugene. With the intention to understand what is going wrong with the history these days, we have visited some citizen towns of Latvia, Lithuania and Belarus that were notorious for multiple instances of serious crime during the Second World War.
10,000 Jews were murdered, men, women and children, with machine guns. They shot them. The shooters, by the way, were the Lithuanians.
Полицаи из Латвии едут, и они увидели этого брата моего и стали стрелять.
Just overwhelming images and footage there, Eugene. Just the horrifying nature of this leaves one speechless. Eugene, What stage is this film documentary at right now? Tell us what you're up to.
So far, we've gathered about 150 to 170 hours of video and historical data, and we are at the post-production right now. So we're actually starting to edit.
Okay, now Eugene, so a lot of the murderers of Jewish people in the Baltics, but let's just specify in Latvia right now, as you mentioned earlier, these are not people that have been put on trial and shamed and humiliated and punished. They're actually revered and glorified in the society.
Yeah, actually, to be, it's kind of horrifying to me, but only 6 days ago, Latvian defense minister, Aris Pabriks, actually, he stated publicly that Waffen-SS veterans are the national pride of Latvia. This was all over the news. It's basically telling that, the Allies were fighting for the wrong cause.
Right. In Lithuania is your uncovering. Something like 230,000 Jews were killed in the first 6 months of the war by the locals.
So Lithuania had, Lithuania was occupied in the first, I think, 4 or 5 months of the war, and they established the military government with the Lithuanian government as well. And the actual military presence in Lithuania in 1941, in the summer of 1941, was about 600 people for the whole country. 600 Germans present in Lithuania. In the first 6 months, they have exterminated approximately 210,000 Jews. And as Ruth Vanagaite uncovered in her book, Our People, it was done with 90% of the Lithuanian help.
Eugene, I've studied Holocaust denial and Gulag denial in my life. It's quite a phenomenon to uncover this pathology. And I have found that whenever you have Holocaust denial, when you have Gulag denial, when you have Jihad denial, within that denial, there is the impulse for another Holocaust. So in a lot of cases, when they're the people who are denying the Holocaust, somewhere deep down, they're happy that the Holocaust happened, and they want to recreate the atmosphere to fertilize another one, in some cases. And so what I'm interested in is the denial here, because for instance, as you point out, the Germans have admitted what they did. They said they've said they're sorry, however it's meant, but they're trying to quote unquote fix it and compensate, etc. Where are the Lithuanians and Latvians?
They're in the woods with their eyes and ears closed. They've never said they're sorry. They are glorifying the killers today. It's the fact.
Right, but Eugene, if the locals are killing Jewish people, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jewish people died at the hands of local Latvians, of local Lithuanians, where are they to say, mea culpa, nostra culpa? This has never happened in any way.
They're simply not saying anything. They're saying that people who participated, they're heroes today because they're fighting against the Russians. And for example, there's one very famous Latvian. His name is Herbert Cukurs. Probably heard about him. Mm-hmm. He was the very famous Latvian pilot before the war. He was the one who flew his own plane from Latvia to Africa and back. And during the war, he joined Arais brigades, and he was seen by multiple witnesses in the Riga ghetto during actions of executions. There's 4 boxes of testimonies of him There's 4 boxes of testimonies in Yad Vashem of people who are witnesses. And he was proclaimed the hero in Latvia today, simply because he was an aviator who represented Latvia before the war. And then they're saying that he saved one Jewish girl. He took her with him to France, and then he ended up in South America. But if he was so innocent, why did Mossad liquidate him in the 60s?
Eugene, what would you say is the state of anti-Semitism in general in Latvia and, let's say, Lithuania? Let's say today or in the past. Can it fairly be said that there's an anti-Semitism problem?
I don't think so. I think today they're working on it. They're better. I'd say not on the state level. What's happening on the streets? It's always been this way, and unfortunately, it's not going to go away.
Right, but I'm very interested in this tactic that whenever truth searchers and tellers like yourself try to tell the truth, there's always the people that say, oh, but wait a minute, there was this hero over here that hid a Jewish family in their basement. Like, we know that, but it does not in any way.
But they don't say what he did, before he hit that Jewish girl in the basement. And same thing about the, Noreika in Lithuania. Everybody knows he's a war criminal. Even his granddaughter, Sylvia Fodi, who lives in Chicago, she's saying, my grandfather was a war criminal. He cannot be a Lithuanian hero. There is a monument to him in Vilnius today. He's that's very sad facts that we are dealing with today.
Right. So, Eugene, there's a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Hoffman who is co-producing this film with you, correct? Tell us a little bit about your efforts at the moment, and just tell us about the film, what you would like to say in our closing minutes.
Well, I met Jeff Hoffman by accident. He saw an Israeli flag in my car, and he thought I'd have some, balls to put it in my car, so he stopped in to talk to me. And he was working on a film on Israel's War of Independence, and we had lunch. I told him about my idea. I told him a story about my grandfather, and that's how the film, I'd say, was born. And Jeffrey has an enormous experience because he's been working in Hollywood as a cameraman for over 40 years on a lot of films that you and I have seen in the movies. And with his experience and other connections that I have in Latvia with my other producer and writer, Andrei Hromtsov, and very talented sound and editing guy, Vadim Repetsky, I think this movie is gonna come out with the truth about what's happening.
Eugene, have you confronted any kind of resistance or blockages, or what has been the overall atmosphere of you?
Not really. I mean, we had some minor incidents in Lithuania when we were trying to film a couple of monuments, but there was really nothing major. Some people try to block us from filming, but.
Who are some of the people that you've interviewed?
We've interviewed a couple of survivors who actually from Latvia, who the only two survivors of Riga Ghetto, and his name is Margaret Westerman. And we interviewed Israel Hurim, who is the only surviving person today, who's 97 years old, from Daugavpils Ghetto. And both of these gentlemen survived 3 concentration camps after the ghetto. And they're, walking and talking to us today. We've interviewed multiple historians. We talked to, as I mentioned, Eli Gotts, also a survivor from Vilnius. Overall, we have about over 50 or 60, about 60 interviews.
Incredible. Thank you so much for doing this, Eugene. Let's end on this. Look, I hope I pronounce his name right, the Professor Andrew Ezergalis, right? And one of his quotes is that you publicized for this movie. quote, everything about the Holocaust in Eastern Europe has not been said as yet, and what has been said has not been fully understood. Eugene, why, and I know it would take 5 hours to discuss this, why the cover-up? Why has it taken somebody like you so many decades later to try to tell the truth of something that we would think is just an urgent thing to discuss for everybody in the world?
I can't answer why, for example, Latvia or Lithuania has not really apologized, or why they're still doing what they're doing. And I think what it takes is a wake-up call for them. So I hope that this film will be a wake-up call for everyone involved.
Well, look, everybody watching right now should go to www.baltictruth.com. And Eugene, for those people that want to do more than just wait till it comes out and watch it, is there a way that people can help? Is there a way that people can get maybe a little bit involved and contribute to your truth-telling? What could they do when they go to baltictruth.com?
So right now we are with a non-profit organization that takes donations, contributions for the film, which is From the Heart Productions. And I would say in about 2 months we will be switching to the Israel Forever Foundation, which will be our fiscal sponsor. And the links are going to be on our website, baltictruth.com.
Fantastic. Eugene, overall, in what is the frame of timing do you think that the viewers watching right now can expect to be able to watch the whole film?
We are shooting to finish the film hopefully by the end of February, beginning of March of 2020.
Okay.
We're trying to make it to Berlin Film Festival, if it happens this in 2020.
Well, we're very much looking forward. Thank you very much, Eugene Levin, for this noble, courageous, vital, sacred search for the truth and for the unearthing of the truth. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Jamie, for having me.
Thank you so much, Eugene. And all of our viewers watching right now, go to baltictruth.com, contribute, get involved, and we hope you'll visit. Once again, baltictruth.com, and this documentary will be coming out in 2020. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll see you on the Glazov Gang real soon. Good night.